As we're sliding into the new year, many people around the world engage in different activities to close off the 2023 and welcome in 2024. And for many years, I have done the same. And part of my ceremony for closing off the old year has been to write a list of things that I want to let go of and release. And I see online, many prompts for that. What would you like to release this year? What emotions do you want to let go of, etc. And so that's kind of what I set out to do on the 31st of December, just a few days ago. And I did. I wrote a list of things on this sheet of paper that were my internal beliefs, my limitations, things that I didn't manage to do this year, etc. And my intention initially was to write it all out on this sheet of paper and then burn it. I've done that a few times in the past where I would do the same. I would write things that I want to let go of and then I would burn it with the intention of letting it go. But this year was different. As I wrote down these things on this piece of paper, for the first time, I think, realized deeply what it means to accept. What it means to accept yourself and all of these different parts of yourself. I'm not saying that I have accepted myself in my entirety, but the thing that I did as soon as I wrote them was fold this paper up and put it close to my heart like that. Throughout this whole year, I've been learning what it really means to heal. There's still so much information out there about, to heal is to let go of something. But truly to heal is to accept something as your own and give it deep unconditional love. In every one of these statements that I wrote here, I can see a part of me that was scared, that felt sad, that didn't love it myself. For most of my life, I was in a state of rejecting these parts of me. Why can't I just love myself? Why can't I just be fearless? Why can't I just show up and show myself to the world? But the other day, I didn't feel that resistance and that rejection towards these parts. I felt deep compassion. Like I understand why I was scared and why I felt this shame and sadness. And it's like, again, it's sunk in that when you really deeply understand something or someone, you'll love it because you understand that there is no malicious intent in that. It's like holding a child that is really, really scared. You don't punish the child because they're scared. You give it assurance, right? You give it love and courage. You encourage that child. You hold that child. But what I've been doing most of my life is saying, do better. Let go of this BS and do better. And I realized I don't do well with tough love. And so it was a deeply nourishing experience for me this year to, instead of tell myself how I can do better and how I should change, to see these parts of me that I have not been accepting and say, it's okay, I'm here for you, And funnily enough, what I've noticed in the past is when a thought, a download comes to me, when I realize something as an insight, it's like, that's amazing. I see confirmation of it pop up, usually online. I see someone share the same sort of thoughts in their stories or in their posts, and I'm like, it's amazing, confirmation of what I've just experienced. And I've seen a little bit of a pattern, this sort of pattern with other people where they say, maybe set an intention for the new year to be yourself instead of trying to change yourself all the time. And I think that's beautiful, and it does really resonate. I think 2023 was a big year of shifting and changing. And really 2024 is about discovering myself and allowing that self to come through and express. And I'm looking forward to that. And I wonder if you can do the same for yourself. If you already have, or maybe haven't done, a sort of a closing ritual for the last year and an opening ritual for the new year. I will give you some prompting questions that you can journal about and ask yourself. And at the end of that, really see what sort of feelings come up for you when you're looking at every one of those answers. And just notice how you feel towards these different parts of yourself. Because every one of those answers will be a different part of you. See if you can bring a little bit more of that acceptance to yourself. And what does it really mean to be accepting? Again, it means to be compassionate. And what does it mean to be compassionate? It means to understand the cause and effect kind of thing. It's to understand why things happen, what caused them to happen, and give yourself that warm embrace and a hug and say, it's okay, I'm here, and I love you anyway. It's another discussion, how, we can still take responsibility and do things differently. We can always do that in the future. We can do that tomorrow. We can encourage ourselves to do better or take responsibility and change our life. We can always do that later. But just for once, give yourself appreciation for how hard you are trying, for how much you're doing your best in your own circumstances. Accept that that's where you are. And not accept as in just acknowledge. Acknowledgement is important. Yeah, this is where I am. But that compassion piece, I think, is what's missing for most people when it comes to real acceptance. Compassion and empathy for yourself. And so what I've done is, the first thing I've done really is I've just looked over my whole year and I thought about the different opportunities I didn't take. I thought about all the different ways I couldn't show up for myself or others. I thought about all the repetitive, unpleasant emotions that have come up throughout the year. And I wrote it all out. I wrote out different beliefs that I hold about myself or about other people, about life. My fears. I wrote down a lot of my fears. And then I read it all out to myself. And as I read every line, I really imagined like it's a person, another person sitting in front of me saying that thing to me. And what I tried to do is, again, really understand them, be there for them, give them my presence. In that way, giving myself that presence. So for example, I wrote a belief that has come up for me very often this year. I can't do this, or it's not meant for me. I can't do this thing. And before I had a lot of resistance to this belief because I thought, again, all these other thoughts would come up like, just get over it, or, stop self-pitying, or, yeah, you can do this. All of these things are devaluing And what we really need to start doing is saying that everything I feel is valid, and all of my experiences are valid, and my fears are valid. It's very different to saying I have to act on certain things. It's different to saying that I have to stay in this place forever. Something being valid doesn't mean it has to stay that way. So in that moment, I sit with myself with this belief, I can't do this. This is not meant for me. I can't do this. And a really good practice that I would encourage everyone to try is a practice of self-holding, basically giving yourself a hug. And I know how cringe it might be for most people. It was very, very cringe to me when I first started doing it. I was like, this is freaking weird. But the effect that has on your nervous system, I cannot begin to describe how important it is to hug yourself, because the hormones that get released when you hug yourself are exactly the same hormones that get released when you hug someone else. And there is enough science out there to show how important hugging is for oxytocin and for the dopamine, and to feel good, to be healthy. And so you can read out to yourself, in your head or out loud, all of these statements, all of these beliefs and fears and things that didn't work out this year, and just hold yourself. Let me see if I can zoom out a bit more, a little bit. Just hold yourself like this or like that, in any way that feels good. Just give yourself a hug. And I would encourage you, especially if you feel cringe about this, stay here for 5 minutes. You might start feeling uncomfortable. Maybe introduce a little bit of rocking. But just remind yourself that you are the only one who will always be there for you, because that's the truth. Maybe you have a lifelong partner. They weren't there when you were a kid, right? Like, you are still the longest person you've ever been with. And when your partner goes to sleep at night, or your parent, or whoever is near you all the time, seemingly, there are still times, will always be times when you will be by yourself. And in those times, you are the only one for you. And so it's a good practice to learn how to self-soothe, how to be kind to yourself, how to take care of yourself. And so this is the place to start self-hug. If this does feel really too much for you, again, I encourage you to try and stay for at least 5 minutes. But if it does feel really unpleasant, what you can do is you can try different self-holding exercises. One of them is one hand on the forehead, the other on the base of your neck. Just take a few breaths here. Or also really good places, hand on heart and another hand on the belly. But the self-holding, if you can work your way to being here for at least 5 minutes, brilliant. And so that's what I would encourage you to do as you're learning to bring more self-acceptance into your life, more self-compassion. And I'm not trying to say that this is easy at all. I think the only reason that this has come to me now is because I've spent a whole year doing a lot of somatic work on my nervous system, learning to resource, to self-regulate. And this awareness of acceptance has just come to me naturally. I didn't try and accept myself, it just has come to me through all these times that I have held myself through difficult emotions and have shown myself compassion. So this is what I would encourage you to do as well. Again, as I said, it might be a bit too much for you, do a little bit at a time. Some of the questions that you might want to ask yourself if you do want to do some kind of reflective exercise for the last year: what stories about myself or others have I been holding on to this year? Maybe certain expectations or beliefs that don't feel right, don't serve you anymore, that are unhelpful. What makes me the most upset or the angriest inside? What pisses me off from this last year? And with both of these questions, what you could do is not only write those things down, but almost in a way, as much as you're closing off the previous year, you can also look forward into 2024. And with these questions, really ask yourself, how can I take almost like a radical responsibility? You don't need to act on it right now, but you can just ponder on it. The most important thing is, again, that self-acceptance and compassion. But what can really help sometimes is to really give yourself a little plan. So if something really made you angry this year, someone has been constantly overstepping your boundaries, sit with that for a bit and then think about, what can I do to prevent this from happening again? What is in my power? And a lovely way to also reflect on your year is to take different parts, different aspects of life and look at them individually. For example, relationships, health, finances, and kind of think about those individually in a way of, how do I show up in each one of those areas of my life? What are the patterns of my behavior or thinking in these aspects of my life? How do I feel about showing myself as I am in these parts of life? What beliefs do I hold? Do I trust myself in these parts of my life? And again, if there is something unpleasant that comes up with all of it, just notice what feelings and emotions come up with that. And if you feel really resistant and you really can't find any self-compassion at all towards yourself in these parts, give yourself compassion for that too. It's like, yeah, I hate myself for this. And don't try to forcefully change that. Don't try to forcefully say like, oh, I should accept myself. Just accept where you are right now. I really hate that part of me. I can't accept it. And be nice to that part of you too. And in time, you can revise this same pattern, the same thought, belief, whatever it is, and notice if there is any change. Maybe you don't hate yourself so much later down the line. Maybe you actually start to feel a little bit more compassion towards it. So these are a few questions that you might want to ask yourself. And in general, just as I did in the beginning, write out different fears that have come up for you this year, different beliefs, limiting beliefs, all the different opportunities that came up and you didn't take. And of course, a really, really positive thing you also might want to do is look at all the achievements that you have this year, that you've accomplished. You can just go month by month in your mind and think about all the things. It might be really hard to do, because we forget a lot of the good things that happen to us. We only focus on the negatives, but really try hard to remember. And if you struggle to, maybe it's a good idea for this year to get a little diary or some notebook of some kind, and just every month, at the end of the month, or maybe as you go in the everyday, just write down when you notice you've done something really amazing, you've accomplished something, you react differently than you normally would. That's an accomplishment in itself. Notice these things and write them down, because they accumulate. And then the times when you feel really bad about yourself, really down about yourself, you can open that journal, you can open that diary, that notebook, and read over all the things that you have accomplished. And it's a really, really good exercise to kind of boost your self-confidence a little bit. And at the end of the year, you'll have a whole notebook of things that you have done, that you're proud of for yourself. So there's the accomplishments part. Also, just think about to all the happy memories, all the happy things that happened this year. Little moments in the everyday life and the big events. Maybe you went on a lovely holiday, or you met your friends, or you received a beautiful gift. Note all of those down too. One last thing that has made me think quite a bit. What do I appreciate myself for? This one did make me feel a bit stuck in my answer. And I realized that I need to start noticing more things that I appreciate myself for. There is a general sense of lack of appreciation for myself. And why it's important is because it will also translate to other people in your life too. If you can't appreciate yourself, if you don't even know what that feels like to appreciate yourself, how can you feel that towards someone else? And when others in your life feel unappreciated, it damages our relationships, and I know that firsthand. If there are questions that I have posed in here that you feel stuck on, or you lack some answers, and, there might be a sense of feeling bad about yourself for it, but also see that as an opportunity for this year to do things differently. Maybe you need to take more notes of the good things that happen, also of the not so good things that you may be able to work on. It's important to take stock so that we can move forward with more love, more acceptance, and more peacefulness in our hearts. And once you've done that, of course, there is the other part to all of this, and that is planning your new year, setting intentions for the new year ahead, and getting excited about all the things that might happen, and setting big, ambitious dreams and goals. And as much as it's the exciting part, if you feel like you struggle with that, please don't feel alone. Because sometimes when you set goals for yourself year after year after year, and maybe most of them you don't actually end up completing or attaining, you may get more and more disappointed with yourself. And it's a really hard place to be. And maybe you need someone else to help you work through that, to really understand what's actually stopping you from attaining your goals and your dreams, like a therapist, a coach. Maybe there are certain beliefs that hold you back. But whatever it is, please don't give up hope. Please reach out for help if you need it. In whatever way you can, do help yourself. This year I would love to put together some kind of guides, in a way, for people who are really struggling. I want to make them free of charge, so that people who are really in need can access help even when they can't get paid therapy. I'm also continuing to do donation sessions, so people can book in with me for somatic therapy, nervous system regulation, emotional regulation, self-soothing practices. I want to help as many people as possible, because as much as I also struggle, I do believe that life doesn't have to be hard. We just need to find a way to work through the things that prevent the natural flow of life. I do wish you a really, really happy new year. The intention is to go into it with an open mind and heart. Ask yourself, how can I do things differently this time round? Really ponder on deeply, what does it mean for you to be happy? And what is the easiest, simplest path of getting there for you? Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy New Year. And I will see you in the next one.